Hey everyone, Dockwell here, and in today's video I'm going to be going over Ghost Scepter. I'm going to show you what it does, how to use it, and when to buy it. So Ghost Scepter costs 1500 gold, and that's not too expensive, but it is fairly expensive for a basic item. If you didn't know, the basic items are just items that you buy that build into the upgraded item. So any upgraded item usually has smaller components, where the basic item, it just is what it is, it costs what it costs, and then you use that to build other items. And in terms of basic items, the secret shop items are usually the most expensive, and Ghost Scepter is basically the most expensive basic item except for Mithril Hammer, which costs 100 gold more, and Blink Dagger, which is a pretty basic item. You just buy Blink Dagger and it costs 2,250 gold. But Ghost Scepter is right up there, 1,500 gold. That's fairly expensive for a basic item. So then what do we actually get for this 1,500 gold? Well, we get 5 all attributes, which is fine, some tankiness, some mana. But if we look at these other basic items like Iron Branch, Circlet, or Crown especially, we can see that this is not very efficient. You know, the stats are fine, but we could spend 450 on 4 all attributes, which why would we not do that? You know, for one more all attribute, we have to spend 3 times the price. That's not really that great. But that just means that obviously we're buying this item for the active component, which is Ghost Form, and has a 22-second cooldown. And basically what this does is it transforms you into Ghost Form for 4 seconds, and you become immune to physical damage. You're unable to attack, but you also take 40% more magic damage, which means you basically don't take any right-click damage, any physical damage, and you do take a ton more magic damage. So it's a very situational item where you press it at the right time, you take no damage. You press it at the wrong time, you take more damage. So then in terms of how to actually use Ghost Scepter, it's pretty straightforward and simple. You basically just have it on a hotkey, you just press it, and then a noise goes off, you know, an indication that you're using it. You see that you turn kind of golden, shimmering. There's ethereal above your head, and then a bar is counting down. And usually people call it ethereal. That's kind of the form, not ghost form. You could say either one, but this is an indication for yourself and for the enemies that you no longer take physical damage. So we have PA and Zeus here to show you that. So if I press this, even if the PA daggers, that does no damage, because we can see here the Stifling Dagger, even though it's a spell, does physical damage. And then obviously if we use this and the PA jumps in, PA can no longer attack. It says target can't be attacked because they're ethereal. So basically you just can't be attacked. You can't take physical damage. But if we use the Zeus here, let's do some damage with the spell. You can see that's how much damage I take normally. And then if I use Ghost Scepter, now I'm taking a lot more magic damage from that Zeus bolt. So you can see, obviously you don't want to be using this if you're getting hit by a bunch of magic damage, but if a carry like a PA jumps in on you, then you might want to use Ghost Scepter. So that's kind of the long and short of how to use Ghost Scepter. It's obviously very situational when you want to buy it, but also when you want to use it in the game based on whether you're taking physical or magic damage. Then there's actually one more thing I wanted to show you that's pretty important here, because if you go back to the description, you can see it says ends if you become spell immune, and will have no effect if you are already spell immune. But if we go back here and we see what that really means, is that if we press Ghost Scepter and then BKB, we should, you know, dispel the Ghost Scepter buff from ourselves. But if we actually press this and then we press BKB, you can see this Zeus can still not attack, and it works the opposite way too. So let's have Zeus do the same thing, where now I can't attack Zeus. So it's one of those weird situations where the description and what it says that it does is actually a little bit different than the reality. So the same thing is true. Let's say if I press Ghost Scepter and then as a lion, I end up using Mana Drain, I have this BKB thing, and the Zeus can still not attack me. So it's one of those weird situations where don't get fooled by the description here, because whether that's a bug or they just didn't change this text, it doesn't actually do what it says. So you actually can have BKB and Ghost Scepter on at the same time. So we'll see if that gets changed in the future. It's kind of one of those weird things where if you press this and this, now I can't attack you, and if, you know, you're Zeus, you can't really press your abilities on the enemy. I mean, you can, but it doesn't really do much damage. So now you're taking more damage, but actually less damage. It's kind of a weird interaction, but I just wanted to let you know that it doesn't actually work the way it says right here. Now, in terms of heroes that actually want to buy Ghost Scepter, the number one type of hero that wants to buy it is any support 4 or 5 that is relatively squishy and is getting focused by a physical damage carry or a physical damage core or something like that. The perfect example of a core that wants to do that, I already showed you, is PA. So if there's a PA on the enemy team and you are a support like a Lich or a Lion or an AA or a Crystal Maiden, any of these kind of squishy supports that are backliners, you know, ranged supports especially, they love to buy Ghost Scepter, because then if a PA jumps in on them, there's really nothing the PA can do other than forcing PA to buy a nullifier to get rid of something like a Ghost Scepter. That is pretty much the only counter to that item. And when you kind of just think about it, 1500 gold, that's a lot, sure, but now you're forcing the enemy carry to go a very specific item to counter this one thing that you're doing. It is definitely worth it, and a lot of times you can get that item before they get nullifier, kind of preempting it and forcing them to go into an item that they otherwise might not want to go. So that's really the quintessential hero that likes to buy Ghost Scepter. Then the other main type of hero that likes to buy Ghost Scepter is basically any hero that likes to buy Aether Lens, because you can see these combine to make Ethereal Blade. It's the only thing that Ghost Scepter builds into, and so if you're already getting Aether Lens, then you might as well get a Ghost Scepter a little bit later to round it out to build the Ethereal Blade. Plus, if you are buying Ghost Scepter just as a casual Ghost Scepter just for that defensive potential, then later on in the game you can obviously build Ethereal Blade once it gets late and your slots get filled up. And then the last type of hero that can buy Ghost Scepter is just any late game hero that wants to just mix it up, kind of like a Blade Mail purchase at 50 minutes. You could be a core, whether it's a mid or an off lane or something like that, if you're against a PA or against a sniper, against some big physical damage hero that doesn't have a nullifier yet or any way to dispel you. You can just kind of mix that in as a weird like 7th item or something, where let's say you have a bunch of items and it goes on cooldown. Use your BKB already. Well, you switch in that Ghost Scepter really quick just to throw people off. You can totally do that. It is a very rare and very situational thing, but you can do that kind of as any hero super late in the game if you want to just throw someone off if it's a very tight game at that 50, 60 minute mark or what have you. Then in terms of when to buy Ghost Scepter, I already commented a little bit on that late game Ghost Scepter that you could buy, 50, 60 minutes on a core, but we're going to ignore that. What is the typical time that you're buying Ghost Scepter? Well, it's kind of two-factor in the other ways that I said, the two kind of heroes that like to buy Ghost Scepter. The first way is as kind of that defensive item just for its own sake. And in that case, you're going to be buying it more like 20 plus minutes because you're probably going for another defensive item like a Glimmer Cape or a Force Staff. You're probably going to go for one of those first before you feel like you need a Ghost Scepter, or you might get a Blink Dagger on something like a Lion. We already showed that example. So Lion loves to get Blink first, maybe not a defensive item, as a first or second item, and then go Ghost Scepter. So you could totally go Blink, Shard, Ghost Scepter on something like a Lion. So you're probably not buying it first as a first defensive item, but you're buying it as like a second or third kind of defensive item. Or if it's an Aether Lens hero that likes to buy Aether Lens, you're probably getting Aether Lens first and then only rounding it out with a Ghost Scepter later to be a defensive item and a way to finish into Ethereal Blade. Then lastly, what are the games in which I want to buy Ghost Scepter? Well, obviously any game where you have a matchup against heavy physical damage like a Slardar, like a PA, like a TA. Those are great games to buy Ghost Scepter in. Now, there are going to be games where you have a mix of physical and magic damage, but if the carries are heavy physical and the supports or the mid are heavy magical, you can still get a Ghost Scepter, but you just only pop it when you're getting jumped by those physical damage targets. The games where you don't really want to buy Ghost Scepter are those games when the carry or other heroes are a mix of both. So a Luna or a Gyro. If you pop Ghost Scepter against a Luna, sure, she can't attack you anymore, but she can just press Alt or press Beam and make you take a ton of damage. So it's not really even worth buying this unless there's a ton of other physical damage only heroes in the game. But really, if the carry is a mix of both, they're probably going to have an offlaner and a mid that's a mix of both. And then usually supports are heavy magic damage. So those kinds of games aren't really great Ghost Scepter games. And that, everyone, is Ghost Scepter. I hope this helped you better understand the item and when to buy it. As always, guys, if you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.